Hi, this is Kat with Beadaholique, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make the Paisley Princess Bracelet featuring the Czech glass Paisley Duo 2-hole beads. Now I've made two versions here, so I've done a gold and a silver, and we're going to talk about these in just a second, but I do want to point out that we do have some lovely colors, and up here I have them all laid out for you so you can really see the beautiful rainbow of colors for you to choose from to make this bracelet. All right, so let me draw your eye back down here so we can talk about the supplies that you're going to need to make this bracelet. So for this bracelet, I have used a chain extender, a couple of jump rings. Now these are 4mm 20 gauge jump rings. I have a lobster clasp. I have two GemDuo Cymbal bead endings. And then over here for beads, we're going to be using some 2-hole Ginko beads. Some of those 2-hole GemDuos, of course, are Paisley Duo beads. And then I have some 11-0 seed beads, and I have some 8-0 seed beads. Oop, one tried to run away. There we go. And I have two different FireLines out here. Now, for these projects, I actually used the crystal FireLine, but today I'm going to use the smoke so that it's going to show up nice and easily for you as I'm doing this. But go ahead and choose whichever thread color best fits your design. So if you're using some darker colors, you can use the smoke, and of course the lighter colors, we recommend the crystal. And this is that 4-pound. All right. Over here I have a couple of pairs of chain nose pliers that are going to help me out with my jump rings, and I have a thread zap that's going to help me seal off my threads and trim them. Okay, so I have a size 12 beading needle that is all ready to go with some smoke FireLine. But before we get to that, I just want to bring out a ruler because the first thing I always like to discuss with people is the sizing of the bracelet. So here's my ruler. So let me bring my purple version down here because this is the one we're going to be doing here today. Okay. So when you look, when I stretch it out along my ruler from about end to end, you can get a good 8.5-inch bracelet. Now, you will have enough beads to make extra units. And if you really look at this, we're working in little units that look like this. So what we're starting with is we're starting with our 2-hole Ginko beads. We're making a little unit here, and then we're moving along in little units. So you can see for this example, I have 5 that are done, okay? Now, I do want to point out, and let me bring out my other version here, and this is important when you're choosing colors. Now, when you look at this version, you see a little something different, and it's because there's been an illusion that's been done here. So on the purple version, the purples look like little X's, right? And that's what you see first. Now on the green version here, you see little O's, right? You see that? It is the exact same pattern, so when you look at it from here, it's exactly the same, but because I've used lighter beads inside there, I've created negative space in between those different units. So when you're looking at these bracelets, they are exactly the same, but just knowing that you can play around a little bit with that negative space and where you put some white or some clear beads or even some silver beads. All right, so that all said and ready to go, let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to start by starting at one end of the clasp, and this is going to make it really easy for you when you want to go in size so that you can just add on more units and units and units, right? Okay, so we are going to start with our Cymbal bead endings. Now this is a GemDuo bead ending, and what's really cool about it is it actually has one hole and it goes straight up through the side there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to string that down and leave myself a tail of, I'd say about 8 inches or so, just because we're going to want to tie that off later. All right, so now what I want to do is, and I'm going to kind of show you on my table here by sort of flipping over all the little beads and getting them ready to go. So I have my Ginko beads, and they're going to sit like this, and then I'm going to use a couple of the 11-0 seed beads. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go up through this side of the Ginko bead and just slide that down all the way to the end. And now I'm going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead, slide that down so that it sits right in the little crook there. Now, without going back through the seed bead, I'm going to go back through the Ginko bead and all the way out to the other side of that Cymbal bead. And what that's going to do is that it's going to trap that little seed bead right up top there. Oop. There we go. Come on. There we go. All right, so now I'm just going to repeat that on the other side. So I'm going to go down through my Ginko bead, picking up my little seed bead there, making sure that slides all the way down. And now I'm just going to go back through just the Ginko bead And I'm actually going to try to see if I can do this all in one step. Go all the way back down through. It's because I wanted to do it in one step, of course. All right, so now I'm getting both of those trapped in there, and I went all the way back through and trapped that in just like so. All right, so I went all the way back through that whole thread path. Now I'm just going to go back down once more through just that Ginko bead. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a little thread bridge. I'm going to turn it around and I'm going to come up through that top Ginko bead. Okay, so let me put that down. So what we did is we went up through, we trapped our bead, we went all the way down, we trapped this bead, we went all the way back up here, looped one more time, and then came down, and now we're coming out this Ginko bead here. Okay, so that is how you're going to start. Now, let's talk about the Paisley duos. So the Paisley duos have these great little shapes here, and they're the same on both sides, so you don't need to worry about which side is your front and back. We will need to think about that when we get to our GemDuos, but not for the Paisley duos. You just need to figure out which hole you're going into and which way it's going to kind of flip and be faced, which is why I'm going to do my best to kind of keep my work on the table here so you can sort of see what's happening. Okay, so we're going to go up through that top larger side of the Paisley duo because it's going to sit nicely right in the crook of my Ginko bead right there. Okay, now I'm going to turn my thread around and go down through that Paisley bead. There we go. So up and over and down. And then now I'm going to take another Paisley and I'm going to go through the larger side here. So this is that little side facing this way. And bring that down just like so. And now I'm going to do another Paisley, but I need it to be facing the opposite direction there. So they're going to kind of sit together just like that. Okay. Oops, you know, I'm so sorry. I forgot one very important step. Eek. Just kidding. All right, so sorry. Okay, here we are. So we got this bead going. I'm going to add on an 8-0 seed bead. I'm so sorry, I forgot about that. So now we are going to go down through that bead. I apologize. All right, so now here's what we got going because we want to give a little extra space. Okay, and now finally, we're going to sort of mirror what we did on the other side there and go down through the small side of that Paisley. And we're going to go back up through our Ginko bead. Just that first one. Okay, so the reason for that 8-0 seed bead in there is because now we're going to kind of cinch all that together. But what we're going to do is we're going to pick up one 11-0 seed bead, go into that 8-0 seed bead, pick up another 11-0 seed bead, and we're going to go in through that Ginko bead. So it creates a nice little sort of diamond shape in there. So you see how that kind of cinches everything together. So don't forget that 8-0 seed bead. Okay, now we're going to go up through one more time. And down. Only through that first Paisley bead. And now we're going to turn our thread around and we're going to come out the tip of that top one there. Just like so. Okay, so now we're going to start working with our GemDuos. So let's go ahead and bring these little guys in here. Now these guys do have a top and a bottom. So the top side is going to be that beveled side and the back is going to be flat. So this is where we do definitely want to pay attention to which hole we're going into. Okay, so I'm going to pick up one 11-0 seed bead and I'm going to go across the bottom part of this GemDuo. And let's pull that all the way down. There we go. And I'm going to pick up another seed bead. Let that come all the way down there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to form the second side. So I'm going to mirror what's happening here. So I'm just going to have my two little Paisley duos there. And I'm going to go through the small sides so that they're kind of back to back there. Let that string all the way down. And now again, picking up one seed bead. Now I'm going to go through what is going to feel like the top side of that GemDuo, picking up another seed bead, and now we're going to go all the way back through. So this is kind of similar to like a right angle weave or something that you would do when you're creating like that little center unit. Okay, so now we have this going so far. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to string through the top part one more time, going through that seed bead, through the GemDuo, and through that other seed bead. And I can do it in one step there. I'm going to go all the way through that very first Paisley bead there and kind of cinch that up. All right, so now I'm just going to take a second to adjust my tension there. There we go. I'm going to turn my needle around and go through that Paisley bead right there. Perfect. Okay, so now we're ready to add on the other two Paisley beads. So if you need to just kind of just double check that you have them where you need to be, it's going to look like that. So we're going to go up through that little small side there. And when we turn it around, we are going to have our Ginko beads ready to go. So if you are just following along with what you're mirroring there, you're going down through the Ginko bead. And here's where it's going to get kind of interesting. So what you're going to do now is you're going to pick up 111-0 seed bead, 180 seed bead, and 111-0 seed bead. And what you're going to do now is now you're going to go into your Ginko bead on this side, going down, and down through this bead on the larger side, remember? Okay, here we go. And now what we're going to do is we're going to turn it around, go up through, and now because we already have our 11-0s on this side, all we need to do is go through and sneak and catch just that 8-0 and go back up through that other Paisley bead right there. And now you have created one part of the unit. So now what we need to do is, because this is going to be a little floppy, we're going to add some beads to kind of finish off that little circle there. So we're going to pick up 111-0, 180, and 111-0, and we're going to go through that top side of that GemDuo. And this is going to create a nice little frame for our beadwork. And repeating that again, an 11-0, an 80, and an 11-0. Going down through, and you can just kind of fish this all the way down through here. But what you're going to want to do is make sure that you're coming out of through that bead. Let me just see if I can, yep, I can do it all at once. Perfect. Going all the way down through that last Paisley bead. So we're coming out that second hole. You don't want to make sure that you, excuse me, you don't want to wiggle it too much so that you're coming out this hole here. You want to come out this hole right here. And then the same thing, 11-0, 80, 11-0. Stringing across one more time. And down through. All right. Now here's how you're going to get to starting the next unit. You're going to wiggle all the way up through here. So this is why we use the 4-pound thread, because you're going to create a lot of little thread passes in here. But now you can see that I pull it and it's just much tighter. All right, so now we're going to go down through this Paisley, down through the Ginko bead, and now we are ready to start our next unit. Okay, does that make sense? So now let me pull out the second one here so you can just see. So now again, you're going to start with the same process of adding those beads. If you get lost, just follow along with your first little example there, or you can just kind of visually look at the photo and kind of, you know, get back on track in case you get lost. Okay, so let's think that if we've gotten all the way to the end of our units here, this is about where you should be. Now, sometimes I will say that if you've gotten turned around at some point, just make sure that you're coming out the top or the bottom of one of those little Ginko beads. You can come out either side. It doesn't matter. It will not screw you up for this next little bit. Okay, so let's go ahead and add on our last little clasp. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick up one of those little seed beads, slide that down, go back through our Ginko bead, pick up our little cymbal bead there, go through the Ginko bead. There we go. And now we're just going to pick that up, go back through. I like to reinforce this as it is the clasp. It's going to see the most tension. And again, just really take your time, make sure that you're kind of wiggling your thread, making sure that everything is nice and taut. You might need to pull down on some sides and just, there we go, cinch it up. Okay, go through that little bead there. And go back down through. And here's where you can either go back and forth a couple of times or go ahead and weave through. And this would be the same on the other side. You just go to the back, weaving around, make a little loop, tie that off, and you can always weave further into the beadwork if you want. If you can kind of get your needle, you can see that I'm sort of trying to bend the beadwork back a little bit just because I don't want to create extra space, but I just want to make sure that everything is nice and tied off there. All right, so let's say that it's good enough for me. So all I'm going to do is kind of come in here with my little thread zap and remove this. There we go, zap it right off. Let's assume I've done that on the other side there, so I'm just going to zap off this thread as well. You can weave it in if you want. I think you should. But just for time's sake here, I'm just going to zap it off. Oop, there we go. It's like it's not lining up for me. There we go. Okay, so this is a very tiny little bracelet. But to end it, let me just show you how to add on that clasp. So we're going to take our jump rings here, give them a little gentle twist. And like I said earlier, these are 4mm 20 gauge jump rings. I like to use a little bit of a thicker jump ring. This is not a heavy bracelet, but you know, we have some metal elements and some glass elements happening in here. So we definitely don't want to use a 22. I think that might be too light. You can use a larger jump ring on one side if you'd like. If you do not want to use the chain extender, that is what I recommend. So you can use like a 4mm 20 gauge jump ring because you can just put that together without adding the extra length. Or you can also trim this too if you just decide that you need an extra inch or so and not 2 inches. Let me make sure my jump ring is closed. And that is my little sample swatch, but that is how to complete the bracelet. And all you'll need to do is just to continue to create those little units there. So they just keep forming and forming and forming, and you can choose from all the different colors of the Paisley duos that we have, but that is how to make the Paisley bracelet. I hope you enjoyed this video. You can get all of these supplies and see even more tutorial videos by heading over to Beadaholique.com.